Good morning. Welcome back to the Dutch PHP conference.
And welcome back to the Dutch Mobile Conference. Let's just start with a quick show of hands. Who has been to the social yesterday? Oh yeah, lots of hands. Great, great. Did you all enjoy it? Yes. Yeah, awesome. So I would like to thank Engine Yard for sponsoring this social. They gave away a great party. They have a stand. There are people from Engine Yard running around the conference. So if you want to thank them as well, go pay them a visit, say hi, and it will be awesome.
In case you're a little blurry from yesterday evening social, then the Wi-Fi is basically the same as it was yesterday. DPC, DMC Wi-Fi, password's the same, lowercase. That's it.
And there was also the mobile apps for the conference. If you didn't have the app on your phone yet, you can get it from the various app stores on screen now. Or if you don't want to download it, you can either also visit the website addresses below the icons. Then there is the back channels. If you are on Twitter, you can add the DPCon and DMConf account. If you want to log into IRC, there's the Freenode server. There's a DPC channel and the DMConf channel. Whenever you're tweeting, posting pictures on Flickr or something, you can use the hashtag DPC13 or DMC13.
Just like yesterday, we're running the unconference alongside the main tracks. If you'd like to find it, then it's just downstairs to the right, room E002. Some of the slots for today are already filling up, so if you want to sign up, I suggest you go pretty quickly this morning. Remember, whoever is judged to have the best talk at the unconference will receive a guaranteed slot at DPC14. If you'd like to sign up, just go to the top of the stairs, find your own. He's the man with the big flipboard, and he'll give you a spot. If you're seeing any of the sessions today, I would hope, then please make sure you leave feedback on joined in. Some of it's already rolling in, and it's really positive. Please continue to leave the feedback because that'll help the speakers improve. It'll help us throw a better conference. Thanks.
So let's quickly go through what will be happening where and when. If you weren't here yesterday, the sessions are being given upstairs. If you leave this room, the stairs are to your left. Just walk up there and you'll be in on the floor where the sessions are being given. Like Ross just said, downstairs the unconference will take place in room E002. Lunch will be served downstairs, and the sponsor booths are there. They have great fun games, so pay them a visit. And after the last regular session, the closing keynote will be in this room.
Of course, we're serving lunch again today, so it's the same as yesterday. Just come on downstairs, grab a plate, line up. Just remember, please, only one warm snack per person. The ice cream was such a big hit that we've decided to go and do that again this afternoon. Woohoo! Yeah. Woo. But based on some advanced technology we heard about yesterday, we're going to parallelize the work, and we're going to have two carts outside.
Yeah. There's a catch, though.
Yes. One of the workers is specializing in mango and lemon, and the other is in stracciatella and strawberry. Tough call.
So after the closing keynote is done, we're not done yet with you. There will be prizes raffled off. So please, after the closing keynote, stay seated and we will start raffling the prizes. Telenor was so kind to raffle off some of the Geeks phones. We still have 2 left of those which haven't been picked up yet. Just check your conference raffle ticket for the number 0571. 0571. If you have that number, you can pick up this device at the registration desk. We'll have it ready for you there. The other number we raffled off is 0647. 0647. We will put the numbers on the Twitter account once more after the keynote, so you can double check it if you have one of these devices. We will raffle off more devices after the closing keynote, so it's worth to stick around.
And with that, that concludes the opening. So I'd like to introduce this morning's keynote speaker, a self-professed jack of all trades. Please give a warm round of applause to Eamon Leonard.
Thank you very much. I love how excited you guys got at the thought of getting more ice cream. Very cute. So I would like you all to say cheese, please. Man, I'm not going to fit you all in. Do a panorama. Please bear with me. Are you smiling? I know it's hard. You've been partying all night. Ha, you're joking me. That's hilarious. Technology is awesome until it lets you down. And I think I need to switch screens. Oh no, we're good. Okay, so. Hello. My name is Eamon Leonard. I'm from Dublin. And I work for Engineered, the company that may be responsible for my hangover anyway, maybe some of yours. I hope you had a great time last night. And if anybody feels like following me, that's where you can find me. So my job in Engineered is VP of Developers Cubed. That's developers. One of the few things Bomber got right. And my job there is to talk to people like you about the stuff that you do and figure out how we can help you do it better. And I also like to think my job is to do this, to Engineered. So this talk is called Growth Hacking for Humans. It's the first time I've given this talk. A lot of it is based on my experience. So if there's stuff that you don't agree with, cool. You can talk to me afterwards. So it's not a technical talk, which is probably good for this time of the morning. And it'll cover a range of topics. Like I said, it's based solely on my personal experiences and observations. And if there's something that you can take away from that, brilliant. And really, there isn't a rule book to any of this is just stuff that happened to me, and there's no like checklist or manual for any of this. So the core theme of my talk is that I'm a noob. Apparently, there's a difference between noob with a 0 in it, and this one's more derogatory, and you're absolutely are clueless. Whereas this one is, I'm beginning something new. I have a bit of experience in other stuff, and I'm going to see how I can apply that to this new area of activity. And I've identified, it's really interesting when you look back at things, you can see the dots, you can join them. But when you're in the trenches and you're in the thick of it, you can't really figure out where you are or where you're going to go with it. So I have the benefit of hindsight, which is a great thing, that I can identify kind of 9 stages of noobage, charting my whole career with computers. And I sometimes think of it like this. That's me, or that could be you, hammering away at your keyboard, working on the next big thing, or working for a boss you don't like. Who knows? And you're surrounded by these invisible walls, invisible barriers that you may not even be aware of, that actually are holding you back from being what you could be, which you don't even know what you could be yet. That's the real killer of that. So what I'm going to do is explore how I broke down each of those barriers without even realizing it. I can tell now, looking back, and share a couple of the lessons that I think were important to me along the way. So stage 1, I'm going way back to when I was a kid with this, when anything remotely electronic or with a display or with a keyboard or with a joystick was called computers. And people did computers. And what is keyboard? What is keyboard? You know, that was the first time I ever saw a computer. It was a Sinclair Spectrum. A neighbor had. Some cousins of mine had a Commodore 64, and I was talking to some people about this yesterday. They were like banging away at the keyboard, and stuff was happening, and you're like, that's like voodoo black magic. How? You know, and then there's this tape thing that you put the game in, and it's on a cassette, which usually plays music. What's that about? How does that work? That was like a total black box to me. It actually was enough to put me off computers because it was unknown. Can anybody identify with that? Any memories people have? Show of hands. Oh, that's comforting. Nice. Right. So I'm not the only derp. Cool. So I fast forward to my late teens. I got into computers very late. I guess I was 19, and I ended up doing them in college, doing computers in college. And this was an interesting period of discovery. I like to sum it up with sudo make me a sandwich. Does anybody know that XKCD is? Yeah. To me, that encapsulates just the power that's at your fingertips when it comes to doing computers. It's and there's a wonderful period of discovery that, for me personally, lasted a couple of years and then kind of plateaued. But for other people, it continues all the time. And I think that's one of the great things about technology, about software in general, is the power that's at your fingertips. If you think about what you can do today with a couple of APIs and a laptop, you can work from anywhere and you can connect all these powerful web and cloud-based services that enable you to do more with far less. And that just blows my mind. So the discovery part was, can anybody identify with that discovery part? Like, do you remember the first program you ever wrote? Right. Do you remember how long it took you to actually get it working right? And do you remember that feeling of satisfaction at 4 a.m. the first time you did like an all-nighter? When it finally worked, and just that real in the pit of your stomach, that's fucking awesome, I did that. That's what I'm trying to capture with that phase. And I had that phase. And then it started to go away. What's going on here? Technology. So it started to go away, and I ended up in stage 3, comfort and the trough of despair. This stage came about when I stopped growing, really. I stopped learning new things. And I stopped... I guess I lost the discovery part of what I did. And this is characterized, this phase, as meh. At the time it was Internet Explorer hasn't evolved, so why should I? So like I said, it was like late 90s, mid to late 90s when I started writing code. Around 99 when I got into web development. I started off with Perl, then graduated onto PHP. I, like most PHP developers of the day, learned by looking at how PHP-BB was made, and that kind of really put me off on the wrong path. It was very hard to come back from that. But the web was a weird, if anybody remembers, the web was a weird place around that time, kind of circa 2000 to 2005. It was just, my trough of despair seemed to be going on with what was happening in the web. Does anybody remember those times? Good stuff. This kind of validation is really useful, so I appreciate it. And then, of course, this one. Can anybody identify with that statement? Why, yes, I will work for peanuts and be overworked and underappreciated. Show of hands. Can anybody identify with that at any stage in their career? Really? 100% of you can't put your hand up to that statement? Well, you must be an awesome bunch of folks. So that period for me lasted the best part of a decade. I found myself hitting 30. I'm 36 now. I found myself just turning 30 and looking back at my 20s, felt like I'd wasted it. Felt like, look, I have these skills, I can build stuff out of ones and zeros, and I'm still being paid peanuts, and I'm doing the job of 4 people, and I'm clearly not appreciated, but I don't know what to do, and there is no career counselor that I can go to and say, help. And it certainly wasn't my boss. I guess I woke up too many mornings not looking forward to the day ahead, and I realized something had to change. Have you guys ever feel like that? You need to change something, and if the day ahead is your work, then maybe that's what you need to change. Stage 4, rebirth. It sounds very dramatic, but I didn't realize it was a rebirth at the time. It's only now that I look back, I can see it. So this stage was characterized by, fuck this shit. I really hope you can identify with that. Man, working in my underpants is so cool. So I basically, in 2007, March 2007, I quit my job. And it was a real, it was an emotional thing, right? Because I'd worked for this company for maybe 5 or 6 years. And the reason I quit my job was I had a big fight with my fiance. And it was essentially, it's me or the job. And I was like, hey boss, I quit. I mean, that's not even I was a bit more emotional than that. I wasn't as steady. It was like, yeah, I'm doing another thing. But then I was the impetuousness is really, birth is fast. Okay, if you're a woman and you've given birth, you're probably not going to say that. But I've witnessed it, right? Just recently, my wife had a baby, and I witnessed it. And 1 minute you're not a parent, and the next you are. And that's how fast this kind of quitting was for me. It was like, okay, I quit my job. Now what? I'm a parent. Now what? Right? In my head, I see a parallel between the two of those. So the now what for me was actually working in my underpants. I had no fucking clue what to do. I knew I could code, but that was about it. I had never had to sell myself. I didn't know how to price what I did. I didn't know how to value my services, whatever they were. I didn't know how to package them up and promote them and market that. And it initially went to, well, yes, I will work for peanuts and be underappreciated, because I didn't actually have any work. It's the beauty of quitting your job. You take that work piece out of the equation. So the first, I was a really bad saver as well. I only had a month's salary in the bank as savings, and half of that went on my mortgage. And so my wife was like, "Well, it's very noble that you've quit for me. Are you going to do something about it now?" And there is no, I mean, talk about questioning your manhood. Like, the men in the room, you should get this. Is like there's something really deep and primeval about your significant other saying, "Well, you're the man, aren't you supposed to bring in the bacon?" And knowing that you have the skills to do it, but don't know how to apply them to that. And as a geek, that's frustrating, isn't it? To know that I have the ability to do this, but I just don't know what to do. And you can't admit that to yourself. It took me 3 weeks to find my first gig, and it was doing some HTML, a bit of CSS. And it was 4 hours work, and I got paid €300 for it. And it was another 3 weeks before I'd find work. And, I really had to I think the first person I had to sell to was my wife, my fiancée then, but to sell her the idea that I can work for myself. Because I don't, and in the back of the head I'm saying, because I don't have any other choice, and I'm not going back to work for those guys. So, but I figured it out over time. I started to socialize out in the Dublin tech. I wouldn't even call it a community. I don't know what it was back then, but there was, occasionally people would meet up for a coffee. That was about it. And by getting out of the house and not working in my underpants, and actually I found a co-working space with other developers. That was huge for me, because then I was able to tap into their networks. I was able to learn from them, and I was able to figure stuff out. So some of the most valuable lessons from that period that lasted for about a year and a half, say like 2007 to mid 2008. No, that's a huge statement. It's so powerful. Does anybody here truly understand the value of saying no at the right time? Show of hands. I'm delighted. That's awesome. It's one of those lessons that you can only really learn from yourself when the straw has that breaks the camel's back has been laid, and you snap and you realize, all right, I'm never taking this stuff again. So I guess the cycle that I fell into after leaving the job that I hated and being overworked was that I ended up freelancing for people that eventually overworked me and I hated. So now it was like, well, I don't have the security of a job and I have to do all this other stuff to make this happen. And I realized that the problem was I was saying yes to everything. I was stretching myself too thin, and I was saying yes to the wrong kind of jobs, the wrong type of clients. And when you're so broke and you got a mortgage and you got other people dependent on you, it's so tempting to say yes, and it takes a lot of balls to say no. So I would encourage everybody to just be okay with saying no at the right time. Obviously, if you go around saying no to everybody, well, then it's a different problem. But I'm not selling time. That was like oh my God, how did I not realize this before? In the company that I had worked for, which was just a web agency, right? The model was always we bill by the hour. We have a finite amount of time and we're selling it. And it was that finite bit that was always difficult for me to reconcile, because if you have a finite amount of something, surely it's going to run out after time, and it's very hard to scale. And it was around this time that I started thinking about product development as a better way of making money than just my time. But the other thing about time is people would say to me, how can you charge that for an hour? I'm not paying you X an hour. How do you justify that? And my response to them was very simple. You're not paying me for my hour. You're paying me for my decade of experience, condensed into that hour. And the first time I said that, I got hairs on the back of my neck. And, the person's like, all right, okay, I get it. And I was like, wow. Cool, I must write that down. And these are the types of things that you learn how to sell yourself more. When you say things and you see those kind of reactions, you just remember them and they pop out. And this one was the kind of another realization point. No one's going to sell me. It's up to me to sell me. And I don't know, do we have any Irish people here? One. Do you know what that tells me? It tells me my engineered co-workers, I'm sure, are manning the stands, and they're not still in bed. It's certainly an Irish mentality. Maybe it's European. I don't know. There's a mentality in Ireland that you can't self-promote. It's seen as culturally it's vulgar. You cannot self-promote. Who do you think you are? You're not better than me. I'll show you. And it's one of the nastier sides of our culture that I think holds us back. And so I was initially very uncomfortable with selling myself, promoting myself, telling people that actually I'm good enough to work for you. I'm good enough to help you out with this. And it took me a long time to actually be able to be okay with saying, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And I think that might also be a thing in our culture of software developers, where we may be a bit shy sometimes to stand up for ourselves and to make the case for why people should put their faith in us. And I think when you realize that, well, if you don't do it, no one else will, that kind of changes the situation. So that microphone picks up everything, doesn't it? So after about a year and a half of working for myself and not being entirely happy with where I wanted to go, I said, you know what, I think I need to get other people involved in this. And I'm not really sure how to do that. I'm going to have to incorporate a company. Don't know how to do that. Then I'm going to have to sell the company rather than just selling me. Don't know how to do that. And then, how do we keep customers? And cash flow for one is easy to manage, but what if I hire people and then, grow a team to a couple of people? Then I've got their salaries on my mind, and now I'm in a position that my old boss was in, who I hated, and I don't want to be that guy. So, again, this phase is characterized by a couple of things. Fuck this shit. Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy, but here's my number, so start a company with me, maybe. That's literally what happened. I met this guy from Berlin called Leonard. Some of you might know Jan. He used to be very active in the PHP community, and he's one of the founders of CouchDB. And Jan was in Dublin for a conference, and he tweeted me and said, "Hey, I'm a PHP developer, and I see you are too. Can I sleep on your couch?" It's like, no. I mean, I know we're part of like community or whatever, but like, no. No. But I'll meet you for a pint. So I went and I had a pint with him, and we hit it off, and it was only a half an hour conversation. And that one drink changed my whole life. That actually does sound a little bit alcoholic. But it did. Meeting Jan changed a lot of things for me. Jan is one of those people who joins dots and you don't even know it. So 2 months later, I get a tweet from Jan saying, "Hey, this guy David Collier is in Dublin. He's visiting for a conference. You guys should go for a pint." And so I went for a pint with David. That pint also changed my life. And literally, we're about this much in, and we were talking about stuff that we're passionate about, and we're talking about stuff that really, gets us going. And we were talking about all the things that we could do, but we, weren't. And I said to him, "Hey, you want to start a company?" And he said, "Yeah, I was thinking of moving to Ireland anyway." Grand. Right, so. Cool. It's kind of like when you ask somebody out on a date and you expect them to say no and they say yeah. Because I honestly, David, I don't know, does anybody know David here? David Collier? At the time, David was president of Pear, and he was he is a ridiculously smart person. He intimidates me. It's a good job I'm a bit bigger than him. But he's a ridiculously smart person, and I said, I can't let this guy leave Ireland without me at least propositioning him. So he said, yeah. So it's also characterized by, why, yes, we will work for peanuts and be underappreciated, because we hadn't a clue what we were doing. Oh my God. You'd think I would learn from the working for that other crowd and then the freelancing for myself and figuring stuff out. It took us a good couple of years to figure stuff out. This is David introduced me to Helgi a couple of months after we started up. This was the only picture I could find of them together. Does anybody know Helgi? He's speaking later on. You should definitely go to his talk. Helgi, also a ridiculously smart guy. And the three of us started a company called Echo Libre. And Echo Libre was just a dev shop. We realized that there was way too many people calling themselves web developers in Ireland for work to go around. So we decided to focus on the PHP aspect, and then we started to focus on startups. And the startups aspect was where it really made sense for us, because you're working with people who are passionate and dedicated about an idea, and you can also learn lots. So a couple of the lessons I learned from this stage was to only work with people smarter than me. And this is even today, this is like a key requirement when I hire people. Are you smarter than me? I think so. Prove it. Okay, yeah, you're smarter than me. Maybe we should hire you. I think if you use that as a general rule of thumb for building out teams, you will end up with a pretty decent team. Client relationships are partnerships. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the next one. Get paid up front. Can I see a show of hands how many people work for, let's call it a dev shop or a web agency, or where there's a client service relationship? Show of hands. Does anybody actually have a founding role or a leading role or like that's almost the same amount of people. That's so there's a lot. How many people here work for themselves? That's pretty much the same group. Okay. So the getting paid bit of, keeping a company alive, it turns out that's really important. And I was really bad at figuring out how we could keep getting paid because I was applying the old model that I had learned from that old company that I worked for that I hated. And that model was, let's say, based on a waterfall system of software development or project management. And there's milestones, and there's usually a fixed price, and there's a deposit up front, and milestones along the way, and then some other kind of final deposit at the end. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Okay. So that model was inherited from, believe it or not, advertising industry, where they had advertising agencies, and they would do stuff at a fixed price. And when web agencies started to spring up in the mid-90s, they were basically geeks like us who figured out that they could build and design web pages. And then they would say, oh, you're an advertising agency, I'll be a web agency and I'll do the digital side of stuff that your customers want. And so they inherited that model. And the problem with that model is, in nearly all cases, you get screwed. Big time if you don't know what you're doing. You get screwed. Because, especially when it comes to software, what a client thinks they want at the beginning is not what they actually need at the end. And they realize this maybe halfway along, if you're lucky, or maybe 3/4 of the way along. So usually around this stage that they start making outrageous demands. I want it more blue. Can we have shiny corners? I know we said it would do this, but I actually need to do all these things as well. My next door neighbor's 16-year-old son, he's a web developer. He doesn't think much of what you've done so far. Fuck me. So it's a dysfunctional relationship, fundamentally, because you're in that situation where you want to say yes. Remember I was saying early on about saying no? You're in a situation where you want to say yes. And you really want to get paid, and you've people to pay, and you've bills to pay. Maybe you got an office, you got rent on the office, you got hardware, that kind of thing. So we really messed this up for the first maybe year and a half, 2 years of Echo Libre, where we were constantly working our asses off to keep the wolf from the door. Constantly just hand to mouth. That's what we were living. There were times where I didn't get paid, Helgi didn't get paid, David didn't get paid. And it turned out we actually ended up in about 25 grand in debt to the tax man as well. Not good. That's a shitty place to be in. Really, really shitty place to be in. Especially because it means you're, for all intents and purposes, insolvent. You're not a viable business. You should really close your doors. And, when you've spent 2 or 3 years getting away from where you were, that's a really hard one. So, how we fix that is interesting. I'd like to share that with you. Rather than the deposit milestone tied payments, and rather than setting out at the outset what we were going to do in black and white, we turned that on its head. So we said to all new clients, we're not going to give you a fixed price. We're not going to tell you how long it will take. We are going to educate you on agile development, minimum viable product, lean product methodologies, and how you can focus on the core of what your product should do. And we will give you an estimate of roughly how long it will take to build that. 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever. And then we'll break the work up into sprints, 2-week sprints that you pay us in advance for. And if you don't pay us in advance, we don't do the sprint. And they were like, hey, you can't do that. And we were like, okay, hear me out. in return for that situation, we're going to give you control. And what I'm saying in the back of my head is like, you're project manager. So we gave them access to the ticketing system. We worked with them in partnership to break the work up into meaningful, digestible chunks. And we gave them the ability to prioritize it. And that was huge for them, because previously that milestone waterfall approach, it was a bit of a black box to them. You know, you might meet up every 2 or 3 weeks and a lot of work would have been done, and they only give you their feedback then, after the work has been done, which is, come on, that's fucked up. It's no wonder that they're, start kicking up a fuss the closer you get to the end of the project, because they realize time is running out to put the stuff in that they want. So by doing it this way, giving them digestible 2-week sprints, what do you want to do in that 2 weeks? Here's the tickets. We'll make up tickets that won't be more than 4 hours worth of work. And if they're more, we'll break them down to smaller tickets, and you just select the priority. And that was huge for them. And in that way, it felt a lot more like a partnership than some kind of a boss-server relationship. It was a partnership, and they didn't mind paying up front for it. And that enabled us to have predictable cash flow, and it enabled us to jump to stage 7, which I'll get to after stage 6. But we didn't realize it at the time exactly what that would enable us to do. So stage 6 community, around about the same time. These stage 5 and stage 6 kind of happened in parallel. So the community stage is characterized by, you mean we're not alone? Hey, I just met you and this is crazy, but here's my number, so start a community with me maybe. And you work for peanuts and are underappreciated too? There's something really powerful in communities. They're just I think in software, when we think of communities, we think of conferences like this, we think of meetups. Maybe we think of people we interact with online, IRC or whatever. And like human beings have been doing communities for a long time, like caveman days. And one of the core tenets of community, in fact, if this isn't there, the community won't work, is that it's you get out of it what you put into it. If you're constantly taking stuff out, well, the community won't be long in telling you where to go. If you don't have that aspect, it's not a community. It's just a bunch of people who happen to share something in common. It occurred to me whilst doing all this stuff that if we interacted more in community, it could be a way for us to get further with the different things that we were trying. So I started up a couple of different things, very local to Ireland. One of them was Pub Standards Dublin. Pub Standards Dublin started in August 2010 with 7 people around the table in a pub, drinking beer, talking geeky stuff that we're into. And it was great. It was really, there was a cathartic element in it. Being able to talk through people about the stuff that they were going through. Some of whom were like me, they had web agencies or they had dev shops. Some of whom were freelancers. And we would, it was like a support group. That has grown to be the largest monthly meetup of developers in Ireland at 180 people a month. And it's the same time, same place as it's always been. And we haven't missed a single one. And it's now a place that companies who are moving into Ireland from, say, San Francisco or the Valley, they'll come to Pub Standards to hire. Which I think is fantastic because you get to, that kind of, that rule some people have about not hiring people before you go and have a pint with them to find out what they're really like. Well, you get to do that first without actually having an interview. I started this other thing called Whiskey March, which was just an opportunity for me to connect with people in San Francisco and other parts of the world. And it was just a pub crawl. So I built a website and 109 people signed up to come to the first Whiskey March in San Francisco. And now all of a sudden I had not only a local network, but I had an international network. And it would turn out that knowing people on the ground in a place where, you know, for many people it's the mecca of technology, knowing well-positioned people there was hugely powerful. And it all happened because I just put up a simple web page. I said, let's do a pub crawl. Who's with me? And all these people came along. Then I did a conference called FunConf. And I had no idea what I was doing with any of these. If you go back to the graphic with the circles, another word for those circles are comfort zones. And what I was doing was systematically knocking down those walls. I didn't realize that at the time, but I can see it now looking back. FunConf we did 3 of them. The first one was on a bus. It was 2 buses actually. We drove across Ireland. And we had the CTO of Amazon come along to that. And I don't even know how that happened. I've no clue. But he came along and he spoke. We had the founders of GitHub. Don't know how that happened. But they came along, they spoke. And then it was people had a really good time and they said, well, what are you going to do next year? And I was like, can we not just do the bus thing again? It seemed to work. Everybody had a good time. No, they wanted something bigger and better, so we did it in a castle. Werner from Amazon, the CTO, he came along again. And more people came along, and it wasn't really a conference. It was more like a party disguised as a conference. And then we did it on an island last year in 2012, off the west coast of Ireland, and you know all these great people came together. And so over time, I got to build relationships and friendships with really smart people who've done a lot or were about to go on to do a lot of really, really impressive things. And it seems like it was on accident, but I think in the back of my head, I wanted to be like Jan from Berlin, joining all the dots. And the power of subconscious is a powerful thing. So here's what I learned from that period of building stuff in communities. It's absolutely the best way to level up. There's no doubt. The very fact that you guys are here means that you get some of that. But how many people here organize a meetup where they're from? That makes me sad. How many people here would like to organize a meetup where they're from? That makes me sad too. Really? So most of the people in this room just want to take, don't want to give? Really? That's an uncomfortable chuckle there. The thing about communities is that it's actually the people in the community that make it a community. It's not the people who organize stuff. It's not the people who volunteer their time and put their energy into it. It would not be a community without the people who turn up. And part of turning up requires that when you have a chance to give something back, that you do. So I also learned that I didn't need permission, and you don't need permission either, to start up a meetup or a group or a gathering of like-minded people who want to share things. You don't need permission to do it. If you want to do it, just do it. The tools are out there for to help you do it these days with the likes of meetup.com or whatever. If anybody wants to talk more about how to do that, my contact details will be at the end. I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. And it's a great proving ground for ideas. We always had wanted to build a product, but we didn't really know. The next bit will tell you. We didn't really know what we wanted to do, but we used the community to help us figure out what the product should be. So it's another real good reason to be active in it. I guarantee you, anybody here that is active in community is probably happier in their work life than the rest of you. Controversial. Product. Okay, so this stage is defined as think of an awesome idea, build and never ship anything, profit. It doesn't work like that. We fail so hard at this. And At the same time that we had no cash flow, we were off building product, right? So we were trying to do some client work, and they were, putting us over a barrel and, just having their way with us. And then we were trying to build product. And so we had a couple of good ideas in here that I don't think we were that hot on, but, if we had the time, we could have developed them into something. So short.ie was the first ever URL shortener in Ireland. It was actually the first URL shortener to include statistics and analytics, and we didn't know what to do with it. It was heavily used in Ireland, which is kind of a big deal where we're from. But then we saw Bitly got 2 million in funding, and we were like, okay, this game is over. Let's move on to something else. So we did Crypto Baby. I can't believe I put that as a tagline on it. I only just noticed that now. File encryption so easy even a baby could use it. It was a pretty cool thing. We had a little Mac widget, and you just drag a file onto it, it would upload it to the cloud and encrypt it and give you a secure connection. And we didn't know how to sell that. This was an open source project that's still alive, and I don't think we failed here, but I put it in here because it kind of shows the process that we were just trying lots of different things. Has anybody ever used Frappy? Oh, good. It's a open source PHP framework. It's on GitHub, getfrappy.com. Cloud Split, we actually managed to get funding for this. We got 100 grand for this, and we got it from an old boss, a previous boss of mine, who I had a lot of respect for, and I really didn't want to fuck it up on him. But we never shipped. And it wasn't just us, there was other people in it. It wasn't just David Helge, there was other people involved. But we built a lot of software, but ultimately, and it worked to agree, but the guy who we partnered up with, he was more intent on getting it perfect. And that was when we realized that, software is never perfect. I can't believe it took us that long to realize that. But so the lessons I learned from that, I'm a bit conscious at the time. Am I okay? All right. The lessons I learned from this was that, solving a problem you have, this is a total cliche in product development these days, but cliches exist for a reason because there's an element of truth to them. And if you're experiencing a problem, a technical problem, or a problem with your process, or some kind of area that you're like, why doesn't somebody do that? Well, then that somebody should be you. Can't work on a product if it don't have cash. That was, and then fail. So if we go back to the previous stage where we figured out how to improve the cash flow situation, that cash flow situation enabled us to dedicate 2 people to product. We were a team of 5 at this stage. We'd hired two additional developers. And so it allowed us to dedicate myself and David to work on a product, and everyone else worked on client work. And we still had money to kind of essentially to bootstrap the product. And the product also solved a particular problem that we had and we were frustrated by. So I'll talk about it in this stage, which is called Achievement Unlocked. It's also characterized by think of an awesome idea. Build and ship anything. Not something. Anything. Ship anything. We weren't sure what to do with that bit, and we hoped we'd get that bit. So the product we worked on was called Orchestra. Has anybody heard of Orchestra? That's great. So Orchestra solved a particular problem to us. For all our client work, we would spend this period of each project setting up development, staging environments, and then, the hassle that comes with production environments at the end. We also found ourselves in a situation which here's another reason why Shorty failed. It was just really badly built. The thing would go down all the time. And has anybody ever done this? It's like a Friday night. You're out with your workmates. You get an alert from Pingdom or something like that. And you're like, sorry, just got to look into this. And you're like, SSH, restart Apache, delete MySQL files, restart MySQL. Okay, and it doesn't happen that fast either, especially if it's a shitty connection. Does that ring any bells from us? Has anyone ever done that? Okay. kind of don't want to be an asshole here, but you're doing it wrong. Just think about what you do with that. Well, why? First of all, you're out and you should be enjoying yourselves after a hard week of work, number one. Number two, if you're in a pub, you may have a few beers on you. Should you really be dicking around on a server? Really? With a few beers? Maybe it's noisy. Maybe you're distracted by people. Should you really? Is that responsible? Is that professional? Sure, it's challenging. Sure, it's challenging. Yeah, I bet it is, right? So orchestra, that was the problem we wanted to solve. We didn't want to do all the setup and configuration, and we didn't want to be worrying about it after a site had gone live. And so how we built it was pretty interesting. We started working on it in December of 2010, and we announced to the world on the 1st of February that this thing, Orchestra, existed. And in January, 1st of January, David basically handed me a piece of shit. It had Comic Sans in it, right? And my job was to take that and I wanted to get feedback. So I drew up a list of 50 people who I thought were valuable and insightful, had valuable and insightful opinions in the PHP community, people who were from other communities like Ruby, and already had this type of thing with companies like Engine Yard and Heroku. So I drew up a list, and I did demos of this thing over Skype, where I asked them for their feedback, I logged it, I would ask them questions like, what are you paying for hosting right now? And, would you use something like this? And what do you think it's missing? And what else could we do? And blah, 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 blah. So we basically took that, iterated back in. This is all part of a modern way of developing projects fast, or products fast. And we put it into public, our private beta on the 1st of March. And then we put it into a more open beta in April. And in August, we were acquired by Engine Yard. And that's like 7 months. I don't know how that happened. I have no clue. That just... Not in my wildest dreams would I think that within 7 months of working on an idea that I would be an executive at a Silicon Valley company, and that I would have the ability to help other people be better at what they do. No idea. So this is our office in Dublin. See all those couches there? They're not actually for us. And those people, they're not actually Engine Yarders. They've arrived early for a meetup. We run 2 meetups a week in our offices in Dublin. I want to extend an open invitation to everybody in this room. If you're ever in Dublin, please come and see us. You're more than welcome. We run PHP meetups, Python, Ruby, JavaScript, Node, Mongo, React, Postgres. There's an open data meetup, DevOps meetup, 2 designer meetups. So we do 2 a month. 2 a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, because we have this amazing space that Engine Yard got for us. And you can't see all the couches, but we've room for 60 or 70 people to sit there. And I feel because of this, the Dublin tech community of people who like to build stuff has really taken off. And I think, personally, that's an achievement unlocked for me. That's what I'm most satisfied about with that acquisition. So what I learned from that whole kind of 7-month period, and really I had been learning this by working with startups as clients in the previous year or so. But when it's your own, it makes a lot more sense. So ship early and demo often. I mean, again, that worked for us. It might not be appropriate for everybody, but iterate. 2 ways and iterate, apparently. Maybe that's the Dutch way of saying it. I don't know. I can. What? Oh, very good. Yeah. That's what I meant to do. Yeah, I mean, totally. I can only bootstrap so far. So we were actually at the time where we were in talks to be acquired. We were also talking to VCs. We were also talking to VCs about being funded, and it was one or the other. But one thing was for sure, we were not going to be able to bootstrap much longer because it was taking its toll on us. Even though we had cash and it was predictable, it was becoming more and more expensive to run orchestra, and we weren't at the point, or we were barely at the point where we were starting to charge people for it. Cultural similarities are more important than product ones. The primary reason we said yes to Engineered, because we thought we could do it all, right? We thought we could raise money and go off and build a company and actually do all the things that Engineered had already done. Anybody know how to run an international support team here, 24/7? 2 people, awesome. You should come talk to me. I had no idea how to do that, but I was going to have to create that if we had taken funding. Enterprise sales and marketing team, no idea how to build that. We would have to do that. Engineering came with all these in addition to having technology that might be compatible with ours. But regardless of all of that, the primary decision that we joined Engineered was for cultural similarities. Engineered's dedication to open source communities and building communities, well, it really struck me right here. And I was like, look, if where you're coming from and where we're coming from is the same place, then maybe we'll end up in the same place together. So final stage, and I have 5 minutes left, so I need to rush through this. Stage 9, helping others. So as part of the acquisition, I obviously, I did well out of that. And now I'm in a position to be able to invest in other startups and help with startup teams get to where they want to go. So the lesson, or how this stage is characterized, is that's an awesome idea. Can you ship and can I help? Investment is risky. Is anybody here in a position to be able to help startups? Those of you who aren't, someday you could well be. I wouldn't presume to tell anyone else who's an angel investor how to do their stuff. These are just things that I figured out. But for me, the most important thing, actually I'll get to that in a bit. These are the startups that I've invested in. Sprintly, has anybody used Sprintly? It's built by Joe Stump, who used to be very active in PHP, but is generally well regarded. Intercom, Circuit, and TrustDev. So being able to work with these teams is great, but they all have one thing in common. They all have a track record of shipping, of being able to build and get it out there and get feedback in the other things they did. So I invest in primarily people, not the ideas. I need them to be passionate about the problem. And I was in their shoes not too long ago. So I really, that's probably the most important thing for me to keep in mind. So what now? What do we do with all these things? Let's go back to this guy. And one way of looking at these rings is that they're barriers, but I look at them as opportunities for growth. And every time I knock one of these rings away, my comfort zone, which I'm in right now and it's very confined, every time I knock a ring away, that comfort zone becomes bigger and I can fit more things in it. I generally feel when I'm apprehensive about something I'm about to do, or maybe I'm a bit afraid of something I'm about to do, like getting up here and speaking in front of you fine folks, that is an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for me to grow. It's an opportunity for me to knock down one of those invisible barriers. And when we're in school or in college, and we're trying to visualize the life ahead that we have, I don't know about you guys, but this is mostly what I had in mind for myself. See that the way that just like nicely sweeps up, perfectly ascends up to the right. But what if we were to change it from career and time to happiness and life? That's a really important switch to make, because then you start focusing on things that are really important to you today, and things that are not important, and not things that are important to other people. And so if I was to chart my kind of stages on the happiness life axis, it would go something like this. So we had computers and discovery. So I'm still going up. I'm like, yeah, this is cool, learning loads of new things. I have a bit of power. And then it's like, I don't really like my job. I don't like my boss. Oh, this sucks. What'll I do? Have a big argument with my fiance, and I'll impetuously quit. Oh, things are starting to get better. Must get out of my underpants, get out into the real world. Oh, there's David and Helgi. How's it going, lads? Can we do some stuff together? Let's figure out how to build a product and oh, hey, engineer, how's it going? That's pretty much the way it went for me. Rather than this. That's a flat line right there. That's a dead career. That is dead happiness. I would encourage anybody that is not happy in what they do to do something about it. So what has this got to do with being a noob? I am a noob at computers. If you think back to the first time that you interacted with a computer, remember earlier on I asked about the first program you wrote and that level of happiness or the satisfaction that you felt. I'm constantly trying to recreate that with the different things that I do. That's how I know I'm doing good stuff. So I would encourage you all to be noobs. Embrace your inner noob and build communities. So that's me. If you go to this link here at the bottom, if you want to sign up for Engineered, we have 500 free hours that you can figure out what it is and how you can be doing it better. And we created a special link just for you guys that the marketing people asked me to make. My email is always open, eamon@engineer.com. If anything that I've said to you resonates, you want a sounding board, you want to bounce stuff off me, or if there's somebody I can introduce you to or kind of join dots, no problem. Just drop me a mail. And I'll be around for the next couple of hours. I have to fly home this afternoon, I'm afraid, because I just became a dad, like I said, and I need to see him. So thanks very much for listening.